It is 2025, and chances are you are not new to the game. You've got the experience, you've got the expertise, and you certainly have the credentials to deliver the results that you want to be known and trusted for. And if you are watching this, there is no doubt that you are already doing all the right things that we were told are required to build and elevate our influence. From showing up to creating and posting content all the time to delivering results. And yet, if everything feels a little bit harder and a little bit slower, it's harder to cut through the noise. It is harder to sign up a client. There is a lot more pushback and questions and ghosting. You've come to the right place because this is what we are going to tackle in this masterclass. Today, what we are talking about is how can we change that and how can we move from just being visible to actually being viable, because this is one of the topics I'm super passionate about. In the end, if we are not making money, we are out of business and we are not doing anyone a service. So this is what today's masterclass is all about. What I always lead with is that yes, expertise is the foundation. It gets you respected, but we need to get paid. Otherwise, we are not in business for very long. And what gets you paid is your IP, the shortcut on what it actually requires for you to deliver results to your audience. And over the next 60 or so minutes, I want to take you on a journey and explain the shift from being branded, looking professional, ticking all the boxes, to actually moving into brand commercialization, meaning how can we make money with that. I will also share with you the framework, how to stop being busy and doing all the things to actually becoming viable. And this is a massive difference. And last but not least, I will share with you the trusted authority framework, which is my signature framework that I have used to develop multiple income streams and have also used with my clients to deliver similar results. Let's be honest, 2025 and beyond are going to be quite different to what we used to. The ones who are winning in the market right now are not the loudest anymore. They are the most trusted. And I want to take you on a journey for a second, because understanding this evolution will also help you understand what's required to cut through in what's ahead. So for those of you who've been around since 2015, you know how easy it was to win in this online market, in the coaching, advisory, consultant market. You literally had to only have a polished profile, creating consistent content, and you already got the attention, and with that the credibility, and with that the clients. It was the early personal brand era, and it was quite easy to simply get results. And then everyone jumped onto this bandwagon, especially 2020. We didn't have much of a choice because the world went online, and all of a sudden there was this influx of people building their personal brand. The market was also flooded with coaches, consultants, and advisors because of redundancies. But also experienced professionals realized that they actually don't want to stay in the corporate role. And that obviously also changed the dynamic. And that was also the time when audiences became more skeptical because everyone promised the world and hardly anyone delivered on them. And now, especially 2023, 24, and now 25, we have seen an AI content explosion. With ChatGPT, everyone can create not just any content, but like 100 times the content faster, and also have it branded. But everyone is now looking the part because we've got the tools to do it. With that said, very few are actually viable. There's a big difference between getting all the likes and being popular to profitable, and I'm all for being profitable first and popular second. And what has happened is we have shifted from the attention economy, because there were only a few, to now the trust economy, because there are a lot. And trust in institutions especially is at an all-time low. So this is how we can address that, by having clarity with what we stand for, but also structured IP, how we can deliver the results that we promise our clients to get. And the reason why so many experts who've got all the credentials and all the experience are still broke is because they have not evolved. They have continued getting more credentials and more years of experience, and another diploma there and another certificate here. But what they have not done is they have not become visible in front of the right people with the right message and the right offer. This is exactly what I researched in 2020 already, when the conversations shifted from how can I progress in my career to how can I influence also when I'm not in the room all the time. How can I make things happen when I don't necessarily want to continue being a full-time employee, but I still want to consult or contract or advise to organizations. And this led me into researching what it actually takes to be seen as the authority, but not by title, but by trust. And let me tell you, it is a massive difference. Now, the good thing is that authority is not a personality, it is a system. However, most experts, coaches, consultants do not have an ecosystem, they have a list of services. We need a system that builds trust, demand, and of course also conversions at scale. We need to create leverage, and the only way how we can do it is a combination of having visibility in front of the right people, combined with your unique and packaged IP, plus credibility that you are the person who should be talking about this topic. And no, it has nothing to do with how many degrees or how many years of experience you have when we talk about credibility. It's about how are you the one talking about this topic because you've got your personal experience with this particular transformation in one or another way. And this is exactly what the trusted authority framework is all about. How can you go from being unknown to being known and trusted for your area of expertise? And as I said before, it is not about a personality trait or people are just lucky or they've just got access to certain people and that got them ahead. It is a system. However, most experts, coaches, and consultants rely on content creation because everyone told us just create content and be out there all the time. Gary Vee has done his fair shares on spreading this word and the message. And yes, it worked until it didn't work because content is great and even a following is amazing and all the likes are certainly creating the endorphins in us. However, if we don't have a system, how we can turn those likes and the audience and the followers into buyers, we are not going to be in business for very long. And this is exactly the difference between being visible and in demand. Now, to be in demand, people need to trust you. And especially in 2025 and beyond, where we see that trust is at an all-time low, especially in institutions like government, schools, or any traditional organizations, it certainly becomes our competitive advantage in 2025. Now, according to a Deloitte study, 94% of leaders agree that trust is critical, but, and this is a staggering number, only 39% actually have a strategy in place to build and also maintain trust. And this is where we are now talking about brand commercialization, because it's not about posting more, being more visible. It's about packaging your IP in the right way. Nowadays, where we've got access to anything that we want, any information, any knowledge that's out there, the world does not buy expertise anymore. They buy clarity, a structure, and an outcome, ideally in a shortcut, so it saves them time and money. Now, most people have all the skills in the world, but they have not systemized those skills into a framework. And this is what we need to focus on. We need to shift from doing the work to actually owning the method. And this is what makes us viable, but also uniquely positioned in the market. And this is exactly what most consultants, coaches, or advisors have not caught up with. They are still playing the roles for the old playbook that was relevant in 2015 to 2020, where it was all about becoming better, getting more skills, increasing your knowledge, being seen as busy, being visible everywhere, and also focusing on your personal brand around your personality, meaning you're showing what you've got for breakfast and what your hair care routine looks like. Now, as nice as it was, it doesn't cut through anymore. 2025 and beyond looks very, very different. With this very noisy and saturated and competitive market, the easiest way to stand out is to turn your skills into a solution, which means you need to have a systemized and packaged IP, how you actually deliver the results for your clients and are able to communicate this transformation. We turn knowledge, we're knowing a lot, into frameworks, which is a more condensed version of what you know and what this knowledge actually does in terms of getting results for your clients. Instead of being busy and being everywhere, we want to become viable. And it's not about just being visible everywhere, it's about being scalable. And being scalable means how can you get more results with the same, if not less effort? And that's a massive mindset shift. And last but not least, we are transitioning from building a personal brand to turning it into a commercial asset. So what does it mean? We need to shift from being visible, so using all the social media platforms, to being seen, being liked, being followed, and getting all the attention that we can get, to focusing on how can we create market value through monetizing our IP. By developing our proprietary IP in terms of signature frameworks and also positioning ourselves as the category of one. So obviously the question is, how do we bridge the gap? How can we make this transition from playing the roles of the old playbook to actually playing the roles of today's and tomorrow's economy? It's all about understanding what actually needs to shift. So when the focus in the old playbook was all about visibility and getting awareness and using your personal preferences to get attention, the new playbook rules are all about how can you create market value by monetizing your IP. And your IP is nothing but a systemized and packaged way of your expertise, experience, education, but also your personality, because this forms your proprietary IP. Nobody can compete with your story, your experience, and the way how you deliver results. And this is exactly what a signature framework is, because a signature framework also allows you to build trust at scale and, of course, scalable income. Hopefully, by now you are excited and convinced that signature frameworks are not a nice to have anymore, but literally the answer to stand out and increase your influence in 2025 and beyond. Maybe you already have a signature framework, but you want to refine it. Maybe you want to develop a new framework for this next area that you are stepping in because you have evolved. And this is exactly the situation that I find myself in. I've developed hundreds of signature frameworks in my career, and I'm currently developing the next one because I'm in the midst of writing the next book. This is where you hear it first. So once you understand what it actually takes to develop it, you can rinse and repeat it. You can continuously evolve and also develop new frameworks for different stages in your progress. Now, another reason why I'm such a big fan of having a signature framework is that it establishes you straight away as the authority and, more importantly, as the category of one. There are still a lot of coaches and consultants who are using the tried and tested and franchised models, from Tony Robbins to you name it. With that, you are not in control over this IP. Somebody else developed it and you are just the executor, which means that you are only getting paid a fraction of that. Plus, you also have a lot more competitors because other coaches, consultants, and advisors are also trained on that method. Your own signature framework, however, is based on your expertise, and you can support it with case studies and testimonials, and of course, your own stories. And this is exactly what sets you apart from being one of many, being the technical expert who's got a lot of knowledge, to become the go-to, the trusted authority in your field. And the beauty is that once you've got your signature framework, it actually is a gift that keeps on giving because you can monetize it in multiple different ways. And this is exactly what I've also done with the Trusted Authority framework. Currently, I've got 5 different income streams just from the Trusted Authority framework itself. So firstly, it is a book. And no, a book is certainly not a passive income stream. It is a leveraged asset. You still have to promote it. You still have to make noise around it and get it in front of people. People don't just find it. So books are one aspect. Keynotes for organizations and events is another one. I've got an online course where students can go through it in their own time. I run workshops around it, live and recorded, and I also offer it as one-on-one coaching programs. And this is the beauty of having one signature framework that has all the steps outlined, because you're not reinventing the wheel all the time. You are using what you've already developed and leverage it in multiple ways for different audiences. And depending on where you are in your journey, usually when we just start out, we want to have high touch delivery because that also means high value. So instead of offering a ton of $27 and $59 and $99 offers, it's more about how can we charge 3, 5, 10 or 15 grand or even more for this outcome, because with that you don't need to have as many clients. Now, high touch offers are all about one-on-one coaching, VIP days or VIP consultations, keynotes, but also an agency model, which means done for you. The opposite of high touch is no touch, which means you are creating the product, usually a digital product once, and people can purchase it in their own time, maybe through templates or an ebook or an online course. Obviously, the value of this, especially the perceived value, is lower. It might deliver exactly the same results as a high touch delivery. However, the perception is lower. So with that, you usually are not able to charge as high of a price point than you can do when you are actually doing it or you are doing it with your clients. And then obviously there's everything in between, from one-to-many to low-touch opportunities. You name it, you can monetize it in different ways. And it obviously also depends on your personality. I'm a massive introvert, so I love one-on-one or small groups. I also love keynotes where it's a massive room. I don't like anything in between or having too many clients working with me all the time because it just drains me too much. I also visualized it in a slightly different way. Depending on where you are and what you want to offer, this also helps you define what your price point should be for the different products. So for example, working with me one-on-one starts at $12,000 and it goes up to $75,000 depending on what my clients actually want done for them. Now, in comparison, my online do-it-yourself program, you can get it already for $500. So obviously there's a massive gap in between. I've got a book which you can buy for $30. So there are multiple steps along the journey. So depending on where you and your clients are at, you can also create this ascension ladder where you start with free content on social media to longer form content like a podcast or a YouTube channel to a low ticket offer like a book or online templates to then the very high touch and expensive options, including do it for you one coaching or consultation, and of course also speaking engagement. Now, to give you an idea where the brand commercialization aspect comes in, it is only one piece to the trusted authority framework. Think of the trusted authority framework like a three-legged stool. It has capability, meaning what is it that you can deliver, that you've got experience in, that you've got results in, then visibility, and also credibility. And there are three ways how you can build credibility. Your own credibility is a signature framework. So it's one piece to the puzzle. But as you can see, I go into this one topic in depth, and I can also commercialize this one topic in a full day. And I've also run 2 full day retreats and workshops because it does take some time to just work out your signature framework. But it's usually also the most valuable part in developing your practice or your business. Now, what is the process? Let's get into the nitty and gritty. It starts with your thinking process and to codify how you actually deliver the results that you want to be known and trusted for. Once we have that, we can then package the process. And since we are all visual creatures, turning it into a framework that can actually be followed visually makes it a lot easier to understand, but also from your side to explain. Once we've got that, we can then structure the offers, what I've just shown you, around it. Like, where do I want to start? How do I want to deliver the certain offers? In what kind of format, length, price points, and so forth? And then once we've done that, we can scale the solution that we've gone for and or develop the other income streams. So let's get into it. How do we codify your method? We need to turn your thinking into a signature framework, because in the end, people don't buy your expertise. It doesn't matter how valuable and how unique it is. They want to have a clear path to get to the results that they want. And your signature framework is basically the shortcut to get there. If they have to go through the exact same training and have the exact same experience that you have, there is no value to it. And also, Alex Moses says, the quicker you can actually get the results and the less painful it is for your clients to get the results, the more you can charge. So I've actually changed my 3 to 6 months program, which I initially offered, to a full day experience. Yes, you heard that correctly, from 3 to 6 months to 1 full day, and then have done for you elements after that. Because again, the conversations in 2020 shifted to, but how long do I physically have to work on that? I'm busy, I've got so much else to do, but I still want the results. And this is where I rethought, how can my process still deliver the result without my clients having to do too much heavy lifting? And yes, I've also increased the price, and yes, it's always booked out. So what we need to do is we need to define the starting point, like where is your client right now? And also where do they want to be? Because we need to build this bridge how they can get there. So it might be that the starting point is very shy, I'm struggling speaking up, I'm always getting overlooked, to define result is I speak clearly, I am confident to show up, I have got very articulate communication skills, and I get promoted because of that. If this is the transformation that you can offer for your clients, the question is now, how do we make this happen? What are the milestones in between? And also, what could come in the way of not achieving it? Because with that, you already have measures in place to address that. This is where your expertise comes in, because you've done it before. You know exactly where people are struggling or where they could get hung up on. Once we know that, the rest is actually quite easy. So I always say this first part is the branding part. It's asking all those tough questions, do a lot of the deep thinking, and decodify everything that you do. Once we've got that, the marketing aspect comes in. And this is where the fun starts. This is where we can get creative with visualizing the journey, developing those frameworks, and also put it out in the market and launch. That's in a nutshell. However, it's easier said than done, because where most consultants, coaches, and advisors are struggling with is literally the first point, and this is your value proposition. Meaning, what is the results that you can create for your client that is valuable in their eyes? And this is a big difference. If I say, I'm a website developer with 20 years of experience, you would probably think, okay, great. And that's it. Because there is no reference. Is it good? Is it bad? Have you done the wrong website development techniques for the last 20 years? I don't know what that even means. And we are a commodity. We are one of many. If I say I'm a website developer that guarantees you to get a conversion rate of 25% or beyond, and I can get your website up and running in 3 days, that is a very different value proposition, because all of a sudden I'm addressing what my client actually wants, and that is usually conversions, sales, attention, you name it. Whereas if I say I've got 20 years experience, what does it mean? Firstly, we need to identify the problem, meaning where do your clients get stuck with, are frustrated with, are plateauing? And this is where your insight comes in, your unique lens to explain why your ideal audience has this problem and what are they missing. So for example, I worked with a lot of software engineers and data analysts and anyone in the digital and tech space, and they were extremely smart. And I talked to them because I was in recruitment, and I placed them left, right, and center because I simply could communicate in a way that commercial decision makers, usually CEOs, CFOs, were thinking and speaking. So I became their translator. And this is exactly what hindered them from progressing. They had the 20 plus years experience, they had all the credentials, and yet they missed out on opportunities to their peers who usually even had less experience and expertise. And I found out that the reason that this is the case is because of their lack of communication and empathy. They couldn't translate what their expertise actually means for the decision maker. And this is where I, as a recruiter, came in. And this also led me into building my first business, which is called Impact with Triple C, because I focused on developing a method that helped my candidates back then clarify what their unique value proposition is, because then they could communicate it, and with that, they could commercialize it. And it has just evolved from there, from my initial digital and tech candidates to then lawyers, accountants, and now any knowledge-based professions. And this is exactly what your value proposition should also be based on. What is the transformation that you can provide? What is the clear outcome that your clients can expect when you work with you? And how do you actually achieve it? And this is where your IP, your method and framework comes in. And now this is where the fun begins, because now we can package the process and we can shift from the problem to the outcome. How we do it? Again, we map the transformation, and I highly recommend to not go beyond the 3 to 5 milestones, simply because people forget and it's too complicated, and then they switch off and you are forgotten again. When you say the 27 steps to build a business from $0 to $100,000, I probably forgot already the 5th step because it's just too much to take in. So again, what is the starting point? What's the end point? What are the 3 to 5 steps that your clients need to go through? And what needs to happen along those ways? So for example, coming back to my 3C framework, which is clarify. In this clarification process, we are going through a list of what are your credentials? meaning what can you prove that you've got knowledge in, maybe through a university certificate, maybe through expertise. But then we connect it also with personality trait. Not everyone is an extrovert, not everyone is a creative. So we need to identify what is your zone of genius that we can then communicate through your positioning, and then we can commercialize it through your IP. So this is what you need to go through. What are the big milestones along the way in your signature framework, and what are the underlying steps and the outcomes that your clients need to achieve? And this also allows us to stick to the 3 to 5 big milestones, because when you look at my clarification framework, for example, there's 6 deliverables that we need to go through, from your credentials to personality to the brand promise. What is it actually that you want to stand for, meaning your vision, your mission, and then how do you do it, your venues, what are the clients are struggling with. So there are multiple steps underneath. But if I would say that straight away, when I talk to people about my framework, they would just glare and they would switch off. It is good that you know how to do it and then turn it into a visual framework, because it makes it a lot easier for people to follow when you explain it. But the more succinct we can be and the more high level we can explain the process, and with that, the more transparent we are with how we actually work, the more people trust you. Now, once you've got the steps mapped out and the underlying steps to achieve these milestones, it's all about the marketing element. And this is where naming comes in. It makes a massive difference to say step A or the codify IP method, because this is what makes it sound more premium and unique straight away. Otherwise, if you say step 1 is that, step 2 is that, it sounds more like a to-do and task list rather than a method. And this is the foundation of your signature framework, because once we know what is it that my clients are struggling with, what is it that they want, what are the 3 to 5 big milestones that I need them to achieve to make this transition, and what are the underlying steps, how can I then visualize it, how can I name each of the steps. This is now the foundation to not only commercialize your IP, but also to communicate it. It makes it a lot easier to sell when you say, well, in the first months, we're working on X, and then months 2 to 5 is Y, and then 5 to 7 is Z. It is a lot easier to communicate. And then you can also turn it into different delivery formats, from teaching it one-on-one to a group format to a do-it-yourself online course. Simply because you have turned your knowledge into steps that others can follow by using tools that others have access to. So, for example, in my clarification process, I use personality tests like the Enneagram and also the brand archetype test. Did I develop them? No, but I also didn't have to. I used those tools to interpret the results to then leverage in a bigger picture. And this is also what you can think about. What kind of existing tools, frameworks, quizzes can you use to make your process more solid and robust? And this is exactly what is sellable. Once you've done it, you then think, how can I actually sell it, and how do I want to sell it? Because I always say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there are 3 ways how we can structure your signature framework commercialization. It's a done for you service, and I highly recommend you to start with that, because with that you also see any gaps or where people are getting stuck with. And it's high touch, so you get a lot of feedback. You also see what is required. What could you maybe automate to get done quicker? What could you eliminate? Because it's nice to have, but it doesn't really make a difference. So I want you to start with that. What is my done for you, high premium, high touch service? Then we move into a do it with you. This is usually a one-to-many delivery. It could be running workshops. It could be I train the trainers. What are the ways that you want to share your IP with a do it with you service? And then last but not least, it is a hands-off and low, if not no touch service. And this is a do it yourself product. It's usually a digital product, or it could be a physical product like a book or cards or anything that can be used without you being there. It could also be a toolkit. It could be templates, anything like that that does not involve your time and your support. So I want you to think about each of those elements. What is it that you want to deliver across different audiences? I want you to think about that, and also how you can use one with the other. And this is what I call a commercial flywheel. And I just give you one example. I start with a keynote, for example, for an organization. I also get them to buy a certain amount of books as part of my keynote fee. Given there's usually the audience of the right decision makers, I often get one-on-one coaching clients. And because they are team leaders, they usually get me in to also run workshops or trainings or coaching for their teams and their leaders. So even though I start with one offer, I then get into the other deliveries and the other audiences, leveraging my same framework, but just delivered in a different way. And that's the beauty once you've got this message and the framework sorted, because when you then overlay marketing in one or another way, maybe going on podcasts, speaking at conferences, participating in online summits like that, you can create a multiplier of your IP. And with that, you can impact a lot more people. And if you look at that, this is also a framework that I developed to explain how you can actually leverage your IP once you've nailed the message and multiply it with proper marketing. It is an absolutely movement. It is a movement that you can start. And this is my movement that I've started. So for example, these are what I call my marketing and brand assets. Everything is an ecosystem and everything is connected with each other. So for example, this is my speaker kit. I obviously only use it for speaking opportunities like speaking at conferences or at companies. So this is a different audience. This is a media sheet that I use when I apply for publicity opportunities like on Hero or SourceBottle. This is my long form content, which is a podcast. I recently also started my YouTube channel. It still takes a little while to get that going because video is not as easy for me as audio. I've got a book, obviously, and I leverage my social media presence to get people off social media. So all the channels are optimized. They all look the same. People know exactly what they can get. I also have multiple frameworks as posts because they're easier to share. I also run workshops and my worksheets are designed in a way that reflects my brand, but at the same time creates a new framework while stepping it into the bigger framework. And this is where you create this leverage and turn from being busy and creating one new worksheet and one new content piece and one new keynote after the other to leveraging a set of brand and marketing assets over time. So for example, with keynotes, I've got my 3 signature keynotes ready to go. And yes, I have probably 85% of that keynote always the same. And then the other 15 to 20% I adjust depending on the audience there is and or update any kind of data if there's any new statistics or insights compared to the last time that I gave the keynote. So in a nutshell, what is the proven framework to build trust at scale in 2025 and beyond? There are 3 components to it. It all starts with how you position your brand. And it comes down to knowing your brand DNA, meaning who you are, what is it that you want to stand for, what are the results that you can achieve. And this is where you develop your signature framework. And this is the foundation. Then the actual work starts. This is where you can then create authority and thought leadership content around it, build your omnipresence around it. And last but not least, to make it work smoothly, you want to create systems, assets, SOPs. Even though it sounds very boring, it is literally the lifeblood of what we need to do if we want to get off this hamster wheel and turn from being too busy to actually make money to being viable. Now, speaking of a Bible, I also put together my own customer journey and how I use one asset with the other. I want to show you more practically what that actually looks like and how you can leverage those brand and marketing assets and where which part comes in. So the first system that we need to tap into is your authority brand. So this is where we get clear on what is it that you want to stand for and then turn it into the first asset, which is your brand style guide, where we clarify what is the language that you use, what's the look and feel of your brand, what are the approved images that we can use, and so forth. And you can also use that not only for your own reference, but also when you work with any kind of video creators or content creators or want to build your team with certain skill sets. Everyone knows what to say and what not to say, what to use in terms of photos and which ones not to use. And you are in charge and in control over building your online presence in a consistent manner. Once we have that, we then focus on building your online presence and optimize the right platform. So when we Google you, you've got the same look and feel to when we see you on your website, to when we come onto a social media channel. The more consistent you are, the easier it is for people to remember you. Now, just having a profile is nice, but it's literally the starting point. And this is where content creation comes in. But you see, it's only one piece to the puzzle. So many are just creating content and pushing out more reels and more shorts and more everything, but they don't have a system to actually turn that into a next step, and or haven't done the foundational work that's required for the content to cut through. So for example, I create attention with different formats, from handwritten notes, which perform like a trade, to long form content like hosting free webinars, to long form content like a newsletter and videos, to then move into my own assets where people can take this next step. Once they've come across me on social media, there is a journey that people can listen to the podcast where we've got show notes to take them to the next step. We've got free and on-demand masterclasses that my clients and future clients can watch. Everyone can purchase the book, low touch and also low cost. And then we step into the signature framework. So once we've got all of that, the last step is to then think, how can I leverage all of my assets into what we call a free to fee ecosystem? So in my case, I run live trainings, for example, I speak at conferences, then I get people to either do their influence and the authority assessment, which is a free quiz that gives them immediate results where they are and how they can improve to get to the next step. They can download a free guide. They can also book a call with me. And with that, I then move them into my either do-it-yourself program, which is a low-cost investment, or if they want more touch and more support, then we can also talk about one-on-one support or supporting their team. But this is it in a nutshell. And I want you to get started right away, because hearing all about it and being inspired and being excited is one thing, but taking the step is the next thing. So if that's something you are interested in, then I want you to take the next step, because listening to a lot of content and absorbing it and getting excited is one thing, but actually using the knowledge and applying it in your own situation, that's a different kettle of fish. So for the next steps, I want you to take the influence and the authority scorecard, which gives you an idea where you are right now and where are some gaps. There are personalized recommendations how you can move into this next chapter. You can access that on my website, impactwith.com/quiz. You can also listen to the podcast. Everything is called the Trusted Authority. So when you type it in, you will find it straight away. Now, for those who want to go straight into learning and applying the entire Trusted Authority framework, I do have a special offer for you, because how could I not incentivize those action takers? You actually get 50% off if you use the code INFLUENCE50. And you can also find it on my website, impactwith.com. And then when you see work with me, you will see as the first option, the Trusted Authority signature program. And this is where you can go through the entire process in your own time with worksheets. You can also opt in for the guided option, which means that I give you feedback on your homework. We also have one-on-one coaching calls to take this a step further. Anyway, I'm excited for what's ahead for you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your signature framework come to life. And more importantly, for you to monetize your knowledge that you have developed and refined over the years. With that said, here's to your success.